So guys, in this video, we are going to talk about how to win by focusing on the customer and touching a little bit on the guiding principles that led Jeff Bezos and Amazon to the success that they have today. Now, something new that I'm going to be doing on this channel and just within the Grow Your Agency community is I read most of my books on this thing right here, which is the Kindle Oasis, I believe. Reason I just fully changed over to the Kindle is because it's really good to highlight notes, and it's available digitally on the Kindle Notes web cloud browser thing, and then I can easily make a good cliff notes from there. So starting from now, every single book I read, I'm doing a cliff notes directly after. Some books are going to be worthy enough for me to create a video. I would have had enough that I learned from it to create a video. Some books are just going to be whatever, they're gonna be meh. So I'm not gonna do a book review or a cliff note on it. But today we are talking about the Everything Store. I believe the author is Brad Stone or something like that. Everything Store, it is a biography about Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Now, in this video, I'm gonna give you the main takeaways, the 3 main takeaways I got from the book. But right below this video, there is a download link. So you just have to click on that link. That'll take you to a Google slide. And then from there in the top left, just click edit, make a copy, and then that'll go directly over into your personal Google Drive and Google Slides account. From there, you can see my notes, you can download it as a PDF, and you can even add your own notes or your own thoughts. So that is available for download right below this video. Now, let's get into my main 3 takeaways from this book. So number 1 is an extreme, just monastic obsession when it comes to customer, and always putting the customer first. Of all people out there, look, one thing that I would say is Jeff Bezos took a lot, and then built a lot on Sam Walton's principles. So if you ever read Sam Walton, Made in America, if you haven't already, I highly recommend that book. But Sam Walton was basically the founder of Walmart, and that guy was just a crazy motherfucker. And Jeff Bezos basically took his principles and pulled them out and put them into, the e-commerce world. And one of Sam's main overarching principles was always put the customer first. So he had an extreme view on customer obsession as well. And Jeff went ahead and just carried that over. In fact, he always states that Amazon's corporate mission is to raise the bar across industries and just across the world as to what it means to be customer obsessed and customer focused. And this is really just gonna be something that's overarching if you read the book, or if you just look into Jeff, if you look into his letters to shareholders. For a long time, Amazon, people thought it was just a complete fucking scam. Amazon, it just barely survived the dot-com burst. Just for a long time, Amazon just got a crap ton of slack for things that it had done. Things like the fact that this Kindle right here, this has this little strip, and with that strip, what that strip means is that I get free 3G anywhere in the world to download books. Anywhere in the world, and I don't need a SIM, because when he was releasing the Kindle, he looked at it and he was like, okay, this needs to be super easy, and easy enough that just a grandma could use it. Could look up a book that she wanted to purchase on the Kindle directly and purchase it anywhere from the world, whether they had Wi-Fi or not. And his engineers thought he was just fucking psycho, because he's like, look, Jeff, if we make this thing have cellular capabilities, then what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to have the ability for someone to put their SIM card in there. And Jeff was like, no, no way we're doing that. I want them to have the ability to have 3G anywhere in the world for free forever. And once again, his engineers thought that was crazy. His shareholders looked at the fact that he wanted to do simple things like free shipping, and then that went on to be free 2-day shipping, and then free 1-day shipping, and then that went on to be next day delivery, and then now you've even got what was it, Amazon Now or something like that, or Prime Now or something, where it's literally same day delivery. So keep in mind, most CEOs, they have investors, they have shareholders, they have a lot of people they need to make happy. Jeff basically looked at that and was like, okay, no, fuck that. I'm gonna focus on the one thing that I know is gonna bring the highest yield long-term. And one thing about Jeff was he always was a long-term thinker. Jeff never had a 1 or 3 or 5-year plan, He had just immense foresight, and as I said, I highly recommend you read the book and you'll find a little bit more about it. But Jeff wasn't playing a 1, 3, or 5-year game. He was playing a long-term game, and that's why even if you look at Amazon, I think the first year they actually had profits was 2004, 2005, but really they didn't start making a crap ton of money until recently. Now, one of the reasons that was actually the case is because they wanted to avoid paying tax, so they put as much money back into the business, into growing to the business, to the point now where they can't keep investing in the business because it's just gone so big. And that's why if you look at Jeff Bezos's worth, in the last year or 2 years, it's just absolutely skyrocketed. Now, all of that derived from the fact that they were customer focused. So I think that it's Good to Great. I think that's a book by Jim Collins. But in Good to Great, he basically outlines the flywheel effect. So Amazon knew that it could pretty much spread through like word of mouth. I mean, to be honest, like I can't remember the last time I've seen an Amazon like ad on Facebook or Google. And I think they did some for the Kindle and Alexa, but apart from that, they pretty much never run like TV ads or billboard ads or magazines. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but I just can't remember seeing many. And one of the reasons that was because Amazon understood the concept of the flywheel, right? And the flywheel is something, I could talk about that in far greater detail in another video, but that's the same principle that something like Uber or Airbnb uses. When Uber first starts, it doesn't really have that flywheel effect. When Uber first starts, a lot of people are tentative to use it, but once more and more people use it, the more people that use Uber, the more drivers there are. And the more drivers there are, now there's an influx of drivers, so there's going to be more customers, and it just creates this flywheel effect. And when more customers and more people are using Uber, then it becomes more mainstream, then it ends up in rap songs. And once it becomes more mainstream, once again, it just creates this flywheel effect again and again. So Jeff looked at where he was with Amazon in early 2000s, and he's like, hey, look, if I can create this flywheel effect, if I can get this thing going, then this is going to be one of the biggest businesses in the world, which it is currently. And I don't know if it's going to overtake Apple as the most valuable company. I genuinely think it will, but I guess we'll see. Now, Jeff was always kind of crazy about this. Like, to give you an example, whenever he was in meetings, he would always leave one chair open for the customer. So like, it'd be like him and a couple executives, and he would leave one chair open all the time for the customer, quote unquote the customer. And really what he was trying to do there was basically show like, hey, we constantly need to be thinking about the customer, even if they're in our presence or not, they constantly need to be in our forefront. So he literally would like leave a chair open in a meeting with some pretty high level dudes, and he'd be like, yeah, that's for the customer. And just in general, like Jeff had a lot of just weird things about him. These meetings would be going on in what he called the war room. So him and his executives, like their meeting room, he called that the war room, which I thought was pretty cool. So now I gave you just some sort of like high level stuff. You're like, okay, cool, Iman, like Jeff Bezos had this opinion and these philosophies, but like, what does that actually do? How does that actually apply to my business? Now, if you're watching this, more than likely you are an agency owner trying to get into the agency world, or you might be a coach, a consultant. Usually I think that's my demographic. If you're an agency owner, what this means is if Jeff had an agency, he would constantly put his clients first. And he might maybe cut into his profit margins a tiny bit. He might maybe take on another contractor, another team member or employee, just in order to fulfill a role to make the customer, aka the client in this situation, happy. It's just something to think about. To be honest, like you don't need to read every single book and think that everyone is right. With the agency, I prefer to use a concept called Profit First. I forget who that book is written by, but that's another great book. So I prefer to use the Profit First model rather than like client obsession, because if we're talking about client obsession, there's a lot of stuff you can do that really cuts into your profits. So once again, you can take a little bit of everyone's ideology and just mesh that into your own. But that's what that would mean for an agency. Or if you are talking about like being a coach or a consultant. For example, me, I have a training business. Like this is an example right here, putting my customers first and just my community first, by doing things, for example, like in Six Figure SMA, we do live calls. I have free live calls twice a month that I do with the community. Things like, for example, right below this video, you can just download my cliff notes. It takes me time to read these books, curate these notes, put it all in there. Once again, my customers in my paid programs, they get a lot of resources. That is putting the customer first, when I could have taken that exact amount of time and put that into my paid traffic efforts, or like into all this other marketing stuff. And you'll notice this a lot in the training space. If you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're info product business, a lot of people out there spend a lot of time focusing just only on their marketing. And that might work on the front end. To give you an example, that might work in the same way that if eBay at the same time Amazon and eBay were head to head. In fact, eBay was worth a lot more for quite a while. If eBay just spent all its money on marketing rather than doing some R&D and fixing its kind of janky platform. So in the moment, eBay's making more money, or at least at that time eBay was making more money, but Amazon was just just drilling into its profits. As I said, a lot of people thought, they're like, how can a business run for this long and not focus on making money? Like, Jeff must be a psychopath and Amazon must be a scam. Like, that's what people thought for a long time. But Jeff was clever. He was like, no, if I just put the customer first, then today I won't make more money than my competition, but in 5, 10, 15 years, I'll make a fuck ton more than my competition. And that's exactly what happened. As I said, you just have to look at a company like eBay, who was worth a crap ton more than Amazon at the time, and now is worth, to be honest, I don't know how much eBay is worth compared to Amazon, but it's like a hell of a lot less. So number 2 is Jeff had an extreme view on decentralization. Here's the issue: when an organization starts to get like that big, like Amazon's pretty fucking big these days, it can cause a lot of mayhem. So Jeff, very early on, he knows like, hey, communication, we don't want more of this. You'll find a lot of times with startups or just in the business world, like businesses focus a lot on like, we need to communicate more, we need to have better communication. Communication is really just like one of those buzz phrases. I feel it's very similar to like culture. Like, I don't know, a lot of people don't really understand what culture means. I definitely know I don't, and that's something I'm trying to build up in my company as it's starting to become more of an actual real company as it's maturing. So yeah, communication is one of those things where like, a lot of people want more of it. Jeff was like, no, I want less of it. Jeff saw communication as just complete dysfunction. He saw it as, hey, if there is a lot of communication going on, then things aren't getting better, things are getting worse. We're gonna be slower, less efficient. So that's how he saw communication, which kind of ties into decentralization. I think I talked about this in one of my other videos, but if you go look at a decentralized approach, especially within an organization, that means that everyone isn't circling back to the top. That means there are smaller clusters, more entrepreneurial clusters, and smaller teams, and then those teams report back to a head of a department, and that department stays kind of decentralized. It focuses on its own department rather than, as I said, just trying to kind of mix and match every single department, because that really slows things down. And that's what Jeff realized very early on. So he wanted a very decentralized approach to Amazon, and I think he kind of achieved it. Like, to be honest, his main nightmare would just be having managers. Like, managing people, he just saw as the biggest waste of time possible. Unfortunately, it's something you have to do, but he just saw it as the biggest time waster. So yeah, managers, that's like what he wanted to avoid. And in order to do that, he had to have a very decentralized approach to his business. So last point is, Jeff was a long-term thinker. Now, as I said, I just want you to put yourself in his position, which is like, they started to have some success. Their stock price after their IPO, I believe that their IPO was like 1998 or something like that. But after their IPO, obviously their stock price went up. Then the dot-com crash happened. Yeah, their stock price obviously plummeted, but Amazon like survived the dot-com bust. And after that, there was just so many opportunities for Jeff to, open up that profit margin and just really increase the bottom line. But time and time again, he decided not to. Time and time again, he decided to put his customer first, even if that meant hurting himself. And the funny thing is, that wasn't coming from just a purely like ethical or moral decision. Yes, he wanted to put his customer first. Yes, he wanted his customers to love him. But he knew that if he put his customer first, that maybe not today, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, that's going to put him in a much better position than the rest of his competition. And that's why you see things from Amazon like same day delivery, next day delivery, things like in the Kindle, the fact that like you have free 3G anywhere in the world if you can get connection. But just all of these things where he constantly put his customer first over himself, over Amazon's stock price, its profit margins. That means that, as I said, that's really created that flywheel effect where now like you want to buy anything, you go on Amazon. These days, if I want to buy something, I'm going to Amazon. And if it's not available on Prime, then I'm not ordering that. And that's how he's really changed e-commerce, in the past 15 years or so. Jeff, he's just an extreme long-term thinker, and going, just kind of reading the book and seeing how he went from those early stages. It's funny, when he first started Amazon, what they used to do was they had a bell in the office. So they used to ring the bell whenever anyone made an order. And then eventually it got to a point, and if you know anything about Amazon, you know that they initially started just selling books. So eventually it got to a point where he couldn't keep, people couldn't keep ringing the bell because there was someone ordering like every second or every couple seconds. So it got a little bit obnoxious, but it's really just cool to see what he's done from taking it from that stage where he was him and his employees were ringing the bell whenever someone ordered, made an order, to now 20 years down the line, being, I think they're the second most valuable company on earth. I think second or third, I'm sure. Going from there, from those beginnings to where they are now, I think it's just been absolutely incredible. Now, as I said, taking all this high level stuff and just funneling it down to, if you are an agency owner, maybe you're a coach, consultant, maybe you own an info product business, the main things that I can take away from Jeff is, although you look today and you might be looking at your next month and going, okay, either I can focus on, a new webinar funnel, or maybe I can focus on a new case study funnel, or maybe I can focus on all these sort of new customer and client acquisition methods and pumping money into paid traffic, or doing YouTube, or speaking on this person's podcast, or doing all this like other stuff to bring in new leads and new attention. Maybe sometimes the best thing you can do for your business is just focus on your customers. Focus on your customers, or focus on your clients, and focus on improving and making your product better, or making your service better. And although you got to think about it, if you're focusing on the customer, if you're focusing on the product or the service, and everyone else is focusing on the marketing, then like obviously everyone else is going to scale in front of you within today, or within a 365-day slope. Obviously that's going to happen, because the thing is, at the end of the day, short term, the thing that drives a business forward is the marketing, is the sales. Like that stuff is so important. Don't ever neglect that. But sometimes the best thing you can do is let your competition get a little bit of an edge on you, because they're focusing on that stuff, knowing full well that in 3, 5, 10 years, you're gonna be way ahead of the competition, because you took some time to focus on your customer or your client. As I said, depends on what business you have, and just making, putting them first, because that will ultimately make the difference. Business is all about creating value for people. The more value you create for a single person, the better, and the more people you can create that same amount of value for. If you go look at Amazon, I don't think they create the same amount of value per person that they actually affect us. Say something like iPhone, say something like the iPhone, but Amazon, it creates a small to moderate amount of value for its customers. It's not something that you would think about in your life and you're like, oh my God, that is literally life-changing. I can't live without it. In all fairness, when I think about Prime, I'm like, I can't live without that. But the thing is, they've just had such a big reach, and that big reach, as I said, the only way that was made possible was by this flywheel effect, and by Jeff 15, 20 years ago going, okay, you know what, fuck this. While everyone else is focusing on this marketing and increasing stock price and all this stuff, I'm just gonna focus on the customer, because in 10, 15, 20 years, that's the only thing that's gonna matter. And while lots of people laughed at him, I guess Jeff's the only one laughing now. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this Grow Your Agency community cliff notes. As I said, if you want to actually get the full slides, you want to get my full notes and everything like that, it's available right below this video. You just have to open it up, then click edit, make a copy, and then it'll be in your Google Drive. You can add your own thoughts, and I recommend, like I do, I print out all of them, and that way you can just kind of review them before bed and just get these little these little pieces of information just instilled in your head whenever you have a couple minutes here and there, whenever you're having a coffee at home or whatever. So as I said, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.